Welcome back to the Life with Nick podcast. I'm your host, Nick Kleitch, and with me today is a gal that I've known for quite some time, and we were so blessed to get to know her, and she also was the officiant at our wedding. So, Bree, welcome to the show.
Thank you. Excited to be here.
Yes, absolutely. So, a couple things on you, Bree. So we got mutually introduced to each other when my wife worked at South Slope, the good old days. And then obviously I've gotten to know you and your family very well over the years. And you were our wedding officiant, which I think is a great honor for anyone doing that stuff. And then currently you are a realtor for the for Skogman here in Cedar Rapids. So um, if you wouldn't mind, I'd love to just learn about like what brought you from South Slope to wanting to sell houses, because I think that you're an ambitious person, but it's always fun to kind of understand what people like, why people make career changes and all that good stuff.
Yeah, that's fun. It is so funny that we met in that way because when Emily and I worked at South Slope, I would say she was even a different version of herself than I know now. So it has been amazing to see her grow and to see the two of you come alongside each other and to be a part of that special day. Gosh, that was awesome. But no, I don't do officiant work normally. So for anybody listening, that's you have to be really special to get that option. No, but when I was at South Slope, I was their business development manager for 5 years. And prior to that, I lived in Des Moines. So my husband Eric and I lived in Des Moines. We moved back to the Cedar Rapids area because he is from Benton County
Mm,
and his parents live here. And we had a 9 month old at the time. And trying to raise a child, a baby, in 2 hours from family is really difficult. And so we had to make that decision about which direction we were going to move. And because Cedar Rapids was a larger metro area with more opportunities, we came to this side of the state. Um, and I sort of landed at South Slope, and that's because I do the whole relationship thing. And my business has always been in building and developing relationships. And so that's kind of naturally how it ended up. And it wasn't intended to be a 5 year stint. I had wanted to do real estate for, gosh, most of my life since high school.
oh, okay.
It, I'll just tell you kind of the backstory. There was an agent in my community back home that was awesome. And I thought that she was just kind of a boss babe, and she also was so giving in our community and did a lot of things. And just the way that she showed up in our community and the reputation that she had, I really admired that. And I love the flexibility that she had to manage her own work. And people were so delighted to buy a new home. And so that's sort of what I always associated it with. And then at one point in my life, when I moved to Ames, I was looking at like Hunziker, Realty, and things like that. Unfortunately, it just never really worked out. Or I shouldn't say it never really worked out. It never felt like a safe enough space
Mm,
where I could just actually go out on my own and just make a living with no safety net.
yeah.
I'm not sure if you know or if most of the listeners know that primarily realtors are like fully 1099 contractors. We run our own business for the most part, and often most of us are it's completely commission based. And so, I mean, you really have to work hard and have some level of security in yourself. And so that was really difficult. So I never really felt like I could make the leap. Fast forward, met my husband, very developed a very stable, marriage and financial situation. Got my license in 2020.
Oh my.
And then, as you know, the world kind of fell apart. So I kind of put my plans on pause. I was really fortunate to be at South Slope. I think that they do a great service for our community. And it was just a safe place for me to be during that time. And especially then, I found out I was pregnant with my daughter. our
Mm.
second. And that's really when I just really had to pause my aspirations and dreams for a minute. And then at the end of 2023, I decided, you know what? I just need to take the risk, make the leap, and just went over to Skogman actually, and that's where I've been for the past 2 years as an independent agent.
Yeah, that's so cool. And so I've known you for a while, and I did not know that you had that as an industry that you were interested in as young as you were. I thought this was more of a, hey, I can kind of see this opportunity going on, and I'm a personable person, relationship driven person. Let's give it a whirl. So the fact that you had that in the back of your mind for quite some time is cool to learn on the podcast. And you're absolutely right. I think that one school of thought is let's just jump right in and see what happens. But the other school of thought is if you can get that other, leg of stability established, that's only going to help you when you go through your journey as a realtor. Cause I'm assuming, as with some selling industries, that first year, maybe first year and a half is not like everyone's lining up saying, oh my gosh, I want to use you.
Yeah, I mean, it's one of those things people don't necessarily, it's not that they don't want to use you, it's just that when they think of you, they don't necessarily know that you're in the industry. It's one of those things where you have to sort of come out. You're like, "Hey, this is what I'm doing now. Hey, I need you, to follow me and trust me along this process." And then as you build that up over time, then people start to recognize, "Oh yeah, that's what she does." And, "Oh yeah, she's a trusted resource in that area." So it definitely takes a while.
Yeah, but you've done a really nice job here, and one thing we'll get into a little bit later is that similarly to you being our officiant, you had done some work for us as well too as our realtor, and I just wanted to share a little bit from our perspective on things that you did super super well when you were working with us too, just to let people know that this is what you could anticipate if you're working with Bree, just to give you some flowers. But before we get there, I think sometimes people may see realtors and they might see realtors chopping it up, going to happy hours and having a lot of fun, getting paid a lot of commission. But there's so much work that goes into this. And I just wanted to kind of have you share a little bit in the day in the life of how you handle your emotions, how you approach work. I mean, being a commission only thing, those that have worked in those type of, money situations, it can be sink or swim sometimes. So how do you go about your day to day business with kind of managing, your opportunities and all that good stuff?
You and I've had this conversation before, and I think mindset is the biggest thing for me. So when people say, what's your day to day? What's the day in the life of a realtor? I would say it no single day is ever the same. And that's something that I absolutely love about it because, and we've talked about this before as well, I have ADHD. I was adult diagnosed. It's certainly a different thing. I wish I had known when I was younger, but something for me is that I just can't be doing the same thing day in and day out. It just doesn't work for me. I won't flourish in that area. So my day to day really is mindset forward first, starting my day with gratitudes and affirmations and exercise. And I will say there are days that exercise doesn't happen. So I don't want people to hear this and think like, oh man, she's got it all together because like some, I don't start my day as early as I would like, and things pop up. But in an ideal day, those three things happen before anything else.
I
I think
love it.
it's so good to start with a positive frame of mind. And then I will check the market. We have, look at the MLS, see what new listings popped up, look for price changes. Sometimes I'm watching certain properties to see what happens with them. And so I can just do a quick market check in the morning, and then reply to the fires. As you know, fires pop up all the time. But in real estate, it's texts, it's emails, things that come in at 2 a.m. when the other side isn't sleeping, and we all kind of know that that happens. So then that's something we have to address first. following up with our clients. We also always have to be prospecting.
Mm,
And I know prospecting sort of has that negative connotation. But what it looks like for me is just staying in communication with as many people from my sphere of influence as I can.
yeah,
Um, and just and be listening for, things that are, causing pain and pleasure in their life, and being able to relate to that, and then seeing if there's something that I can do to help. That's a big part. You said the happy hours and the networking. It's huge. I mean, that is such a huge part of what we do, because staying in front of people is so important, and letting people know you're in the industry and building those relationships. And that's something that really fuels my fire. So if I go a whole week without getting to something like that, number one, it's going to impact my pipeline down the road.
for sure.
Business is going to just naturally slow. But it also just sort of makes me feel like a little meh. I just, I definitely need the social interaction, the networking. I need to be having those conversations and building relationships in order to feel like I'm at my best self. Um, we're obviously always writing offers and negotiating contracts. Inspections is one of those things for me that I think some people love it. And for me, it can be one of the most challenging parts of my job, is helping people navigate inspections, whether they're on the buy side or the sell side. Um, and then I think something I do every day is I'm almost like a people's psychologist or counselor some days,
Yeah,
trying to help people fight the emotional roller coaster, I guess, because it's something that you can easily ride as a buyer or seller, and as an agent if you let yourself. And so, really kind of reasoning with people and sort of talking people off a ledge and helping them feel more comfortable and confident in their decisions, for sure.
that's a very, very beautiful answer. And I wanted you to detail that a little bit because I think that you can look at an industry and you can just make your assumptions based on social media, based on X, based on Y, but it's nice to hear all the things that go into making up a day in the life of a realtor because, again, it is far more than just, oh, I have all these people lined up and I just sold a bunch of houses and life is good. There's good times and bad times. So when you're building connections, networking, doing some of that stuff, do you shift from that into going to actively reach out to people to try to see if you can use your services, or is it more that people will seek you out for, let's say they have a question, or it could be as direct as, hey, we're ready to buy a house or sell a house. I'm always curious on that too, because that can be different from sales industry to sales industry. Sometimes you really have to go be in contact with people. Other times they can kind of come to you, but I'm sure there has to be activity on one end of the spectrum of that.
I think that's a really interesting question. I would say yes to all of those things, all of the above. Um, so it's interesting how you'll just, people, once they realize that you're in real estate, they, will naturally start asking questions. How's the market? What do you know about mortgage rates? All that kind of all that kind of stuff. Also, like, oh, my neighbor has just told me that they're thinking about listing their house. So all of those things where you can say, "Oh, that's fantastic. Would you be interested in sending an email to introduce us or something like that?" All the way to, yeah, getting a call from your really good friends saying, "Hey, we are ready to buy a house." And that's awesome. And those are the calls that you don't expect, that you're just like, "Woo, here we go." Um, but then the other side of it is you can't just sit back and hope that your relationships reach out to you. I mean, certainly
Mm,
you have to be proactive. And I something that I did in my first year, because I recognized that I hadn't built up that reputation for myself as a realtor yet. It doesn't go from, 0 to 100 overnight. So I did a lot of open houses,
Mm,
and I think some people love them, some people hate them. The benefit of open houses is that you have a good amount of the people that come through the open houses that are actively in the market. They're looking for something to buy, or they might even just be nosy neighbors who are interested in selling their house. And it might not be this week, but it might be next season or next year. And so it's almost like they're walking in and you're interviewing with them, whether you like that idea or not.
mm.
And I really enjoy open houses. You know me, I love talking to people.
Oh yeah, you're
And
fantastic at it.
I just like to get to know people, and if I can help, great. And if I can't, and if it's not a good fit, there will be people that'll walk into an open house and they'll like divert their eyes and just try to zip in and out. And you know, you just read people, and those are the people that I just don't bother them. It's like, thanks for coming. Let me know if you have any questions.
Yeah.
I'm going to keep this as painless as possible for you because it seems like they must have had a bad experience, or they have some misconception about what it's like to go to open houses and be bothered by salespeople. But I'm really a relationships first um, type of, I don't know if salesperson is the right terminology, but my selling philosophy is really relationship first
Yeah,
focused.
and I'll add on to that too. So getting to know you before you had become a realtor, um, it was it was very evident that that is your personality. The other thing I would throw in there is you're you're extremely kind and you want to help, and that can come in forms of education as well. That might not be something that you cognitively think of, but because that radar is there for you, of like, if I have a question, you're just very, very kind enough to throw out a piece of information, or I'm going to share this to give you this perspective or whatnot. So I would throw a very good teacher slash educator in that pool as well, because, for my wife and I, having to go buy a house, most of the time, and I'm sure you obviously have a lot of evidence on this, you have no idea what you're doing. You have literally no point of reference on what even the process looks like. And so for you to be able to educate people and just be there for any type of question, I think is something I can absolutely attest to. But let's work a little bit into kind of what goes into a successful buying process or selling process. Um, I know this is going to be a little open ended for you just because we can go a lot of different, rabbit holes. But in your opinion, like, what makes a good process, or what makes someone ready to buy versus ready to sell? Or, like I said, you can take it in any which way, but I'm just kind of curious what makes a successful process versus maybe something that is not going to lead to success.
I think straight away, we all have our own processes and policies that we implement. Something that happened in July of 2024 was that our laws changed that you have to have a buyer's agreement in place before viewing any property. And so one thing that and that's even virtually. So if an
Mm,
agent is showing a property, you have to sign a buyer's agreement prior to going into that home. And I think that is something that has really impacted the industry in, uh, I think, a positive way, because it's one of those things where you sort of have to stop and think before you're going into a home. And you have to actually have a little bit of education about how the process looks going into it. And so I have really enjoyed that. The other thing I would say is, talking to a lender first, I
mm,
think is so important, because as an agent, we're well versed in the market and in the process of helping a person find a home. Um, but we don't know your financial situation. We don't know your readiness. And so having that conversation with a lender up front is huge. but I don't want to just leave it vague and stop there, because I think that's where some people sort of get hung up, is that they'll fill out everything that they need online. Maybe they don't even talk to somebody and they get a pre-approval. And the amount that the pre-approval is for is based on this super finite amount of information that you have just fed into the computer, the lender, or whatever. So they only have this limited picture of your financial situation. What
Mm,
I'm saying is have a conversation with an experienced financial professional that's going to help you decide, how much can I afford? And maybe not even how much can I afford, how much would I like to spend on a monthly payment? What feels comfortable to me?
mm,
And then what does that look like? What is my buying power based off of that? Um,
so
because I
good.
think something that's really challenging is when I have buyers that they don't truly know what they can afford,
Hmm.
or they know what they can afford, but then when it comes down to the wire, they just realize, wow, that's actually a little bit more than I want to spend on a monthly payment. Um, or in some cases, they don't realize how much it costs to get to the closing table. And I do my best to educate my buyers as far as, what closing costs are and things like that. But again, I don't know the ins and outs of everybody's financial situation. And that's where that lender comes into play. So, from a buyer standpoint, and that's any buyer, whether you're a first time buyer, young person, uh, you know, middle aged, it doesn't matter your age or where you are in the journey. But if you're a buyer, that is my number one first step. And that will lead to a more successful buying. Um, that'll lead to a more successful buying process.
That's awesome. And I think, again, for people that don't spend a lot of time naturally in your industry, this is something that I would pay attention to, right? Is like, okay, I have listened to the podcast. I'm, curious about Brie in general, but that's a great nugget of information for anyone to just have in the back of their mind before they go out and do that. And then, do you have anything to add on the selling side? And I only say that because as I'm kind of naturally like talking with you, I know that there's always two sides to the coin in this industry. So if there's any other things you want to add there, we can turn to the other side of the coin for a minute.
Yeah. I think on the selling side, the most important thing really is to trust trust the expert that you're working with. So I I highly encourage that you work with a licensed realtor who, has the experience and the market knowledge, to help you get your home sold. I can speak personally when we sold our house in Des Moines. When we bought our house, it was our first home, and we used an agent, and he was fantastic. And I really try to emulate my business off of him. His name's Lance Hansen, by the way. I don't even know if he's still in the business, but his daughter-in-law was working with him. And he's out of the Des Moines area. And he just really treated us like family and helped educate us, in the way that I would hope that I am now doing with my buyers. And when we went to sell, because we had to sell our home so much sooner than we expected, we did not have the equity available to be able to hire an agent to sell our home. So we had to do it ourselves.
Mm,
And we were fortunate in the fact that we were in a time in the market when we could easily do that, because, rates were low enough and there was enough buyer interest, and there wasn't enough inventory. We were fortunate that we decided to sell at a time when we could sell it ourselves. But what I will tell you is it did not go smoothly. It was definitely painful in ways. And looking back, I realized that, gosh, if we had had the opportunity, but that's what I know, Nick, is that, like, there are situations and there are people that they're not going to be able to use an agent. to help sell their home because there are costs incurred with that. And sometimes you don't have the equity for that. Um, and then there are some people that they like that pain.
Mm,
They like they want to take the bull by the horns and do it themselves. And and they like the control of it. And I think that more power to them. I love that. But what I would say is like if you have the opportunity and that's not really something that you're open to trying yourself, trust the expert, trust the market trends and the market statistics because we're really going to do the work for you up front to help you see what your home's true market value is. And then within that true market value, most agents are going to give you a range where you can list. And I would say obviously the lower end of the range is going to get you a faster turnaround. The higher end of the range, there are some risks in it sitting on the market
mhm.
longer and it having some effects on buyer appeal. I have 2 sheets on seller preparation guidelines, and I would say the more that you can do to make your home listing ready, the more attractive it's going to be to the buyers coming through. And if it's priced right, the faster it should actually move. So, I mean, I guess my number one advice for sellers would just be to, you know, trust your resources. Um, that would be the greatest thing.
Yeah.
On buyers, so you can splice this together however you want. Another tip for buyers, I would say, is when we are looking at homes, is being sort of forward thinking as far as how long do you intend to be in this home and what potential life changes do you see in that time? Because I think too often when we're excited to buy a house, we sort of get into this frame of mind where um, how does it suit our current lifestyle? But especially if you're a young couple considering growing a family,
Mm.
that's something to consider uh, because we might just be thinking about one baby. But if we're planning to stay in that house for 5 to 7 years and we plan to start a family soon, what does this house look like for 2 or 3 kids? You just never know.
That's really, really good advice, though, not to cut you off, but I think these are the things that people don't consider is the long term.
And it's not just about what might your family look like, but it's also like what does that neighborhood look like?
Mm.
Is and your trusted agent should have information as far as like, what does the city have as far as, planning, future planning? Because a lot of times they'll have, future maps that they have identified areas for growth and some potential zoning changes coming up and, just things that can change and impact the value of your home over time. It's important to lean on your agent and help and to have an understanding of what that could look like as well.
Yeah, that's so, so good, Brie. I really appreciate you doing that because I guess I would be curious to know personally, and then that's why I wanted to do this podcast in part to just share, give you an opportunity for your own, audience to learn about you, learn about your philosophies and stuff. But I just think it's good information to hear for folks that are curious. Maybe I'm overly curious for some reason, but I still want to give a good product to the people to know. Um, so I want to maybe incorporate this part now in the podcast, and then we can rotate more to personal stuff to end it. So as far as just general tips, is there any other thing like taking a step back from the prior question of managing a successful process that you would want to throw out for nuggets of information? So I'm going to put you on the spot just a little bit, but I also think that there's always maybe nuanced things that you would want to advise, or maybe things that you originally thought that you now know are either the same or different now that you've been in the industry for a little bit.
I think there was a time where people were skipping inspections because it obviously, if you're asking for inspections and another buyer isn't, it certainly doesn't make your offer as competitive as, as the other offer that's coming in. But so often those inspections are uncovering hidden issues that you would not have known about otherwise. And
Mhm.
I I mean, I know that it is especially challenging to choose to do the inspection when you are competing for a house that you have fallen in love with. I completely get that. But at the same time, the the risk could be so incredibly costly. Even newer homes, you just you just never know. And so that's a tip that I have, and I advise all my clients
Mm.
to, get a home inspection. That does generally cost, somewhere between 500 to 800, $900 upfront. That's something interesting that people might not understand, but it is so worth it, because this might be is probably one of the largest investments that you will ever make. And so just to make sure that what you're buying is a solid and sound product, as you like to use that terminology, I think it's so important. Also, thinking about real estate as a wealth builder, I think is also something
Mm.
else just to consider that. And I have some stats I want to look at really quick. So the Federal Housing Finance Agency releases reports every quarter about, housing data, and they do it by um, MSA, which is a metropolitan statistical area. So there is an MSA for Iowa City and an MSA for Cedar Rapids. And it's interesting to look at the graphs and historical data. And so since 2005, the Iowa City MSA has had an 89.8% increase. And so that's a lot of equity that has come out of the last 20 years. And what that looks like for them is a 3.8 average annual appreciation. And so then when you look at the Cedar Rapids MSA, it's been a 76% increase since 2005 and a 3.4% average annual appreciation. So when you look at it that way and you think about holding an
Yeah.
investment over a 20-year span of time and having an 89 or a 76% return on that investment, I mean, that's pretty wild when you think about it that way. So, but also, I mean, there are costs that come with, there are costs that incurred with purchasing a property. And so that is why with my new buyers, especially, I like to educate, and you've heard this, about planning to stay there for 5 to 7 years to make sure that you have enough equity to reinvest into the next thing.
Yeah.
So, anyway, those are just some fun facts that I like to think about. When you're thinking about real estate as like a wealth growth tool, I guess.
And that's why I wanted to pose the follow up question after the process question, because I think that those are valuable things that people would want to know or should want to know. Um, so thank you for kind of broadening out the net and just throwing some other kind of pieces in there. Any other things that come to mind before we shift a little bit to our back half of our conversation?
I don't think so.
Cool. I think you've shared a lot of really good stuff so far. So if you feel like you don't have anything, it's probably because we covered all the good stuff, or at least that's my positive thought. Anyway, yeah,
Some of it. One thing I
sure.
want to ask you is, when we were house hunting, is there anything that now, after we've went through that process, is there anything that stuck with you, that you notice, or that you find yourself thinking about or noticing in real estate that you didn't before you started working with me?
Oh, it's a phenomenal question, and this is where I do want to give a lot of credit to you and how you helped us and provided that opportunity. So, um, the first word that comes to mind is kind of everything, and I say that because I have never even knew what I was doing at all, And so now we go from completely uneducated, not even knowing the area, not even knowing the price range, not even knowing the style of house to, and maybe if my wife was on the podcast, she would have been like, I think I had this all figured out. But so this is just maybe my own personal interpretation. But anyway, I went from literally knowing nothing to now, like we have a 100% clarity on what exactly that we're looking for in our first home. And so now it's literally just a matter of time before we're ready to enter into that ability to commit to buy. So I say that to say, if you're someone listening to this and you've never looked for a house, or maybe you've done some stuff on your own, your realtor, hopefully I didn't say the realtor,
You're good.
realtor, um, they really do need to be your trusted advisor in this search, because their ability not only to guide you, but their ability to educate you is exactly what the doctor ordered. And for people out there that might be, have their own opinion about, having to pay for that, I think that they need to understand that there's a reason that they're professionals, right? You're not a used car salesman out here just slinging houses. I mean, this is a respected profession for a reason. And so now I'm getting a little long-winded, but to answer your question, I would say that for someone that literally knew nothing to knowing exactly what to look for, I think that's like the biggest takeaway is you go from not having any confidence or an idea to having full confidence, or at least 80% confidence. And then now it's just a matter of when you're ready to go. So, but yeah, that was a phenomenal question.
I just really like to hear my clients, like Emily, say, now all I notice is the trees. There are dead trees everywhere. They could be falling on those people's houses as we speak. And I just appreciate that when we can have those those learning moments, and then you take away from that, and you're making those decisions without a voice from me when we're looking at properties like, oh, well, there's three dead trees in the yard that could fall on the house, and that's incredibly expensive. What a risk. And then it's just exciting to see that. And then to hear people say like, oh, they don't have the gutters, and they don't have the downspouts draining away from the foundation. That's a real problem. And it's just, I love that part of my job. It's just being able to educate and then seeing it play out in real life in the comments that then my clients continue to make as we go through the process. It's really cool.
Yeah, and this is where too, I do want to give you a little bit more credit from our experience. Sometimes when you're in sales, you have people that are in sales that are hard selling people. Obviously, you're not one of those people because you're very relationship based. But you were such a good leader to say like, okay, we're going to go see this house. And when we would step on there, it would be, you'd give us space to look and whatnot, but you would almost put yourself in our shoes and be like, here's something to pay attention to, here's something to pay attention to, and here's something to pay attention to. And I just personally think that, like, if you're not out to help people, you would never have that mental approach. It would be like, okay, are we ready to go for this? Or, that hard selling mindset. So if you're someone listening to this and you don't have a realtor, I would definitely suggest that would be a quality in which that I would be hopeful for, because that made us feel incredibly safe, and it made, like, just confirmed that your intention was that of you want to help first and you're not just trying to hard sell. So that'd be another thing I would just share as like feedback for you, but also for folks looking to get a realtor.
Thank you. Appreciate that.
Yes, absolutely. Absolutely. So we're going to shift a little bit in the podcast here to more of you, Bree, in terms of your motivation, and then we're also going to touch on one of both of our favorite topics, and that is reading books and personal development. So
Yes.
if you're ready to dive in, we can continue forth.
Yeah, absolutely. This is going to be the juiciest part.
Well, we're flying right along here, and I appreciate you so much on just adding value like our plan was. So I'm gonna finish up with the motivation question because I want to dive right into the books. So one thing that I personally appreciate about you, Bree, is that you're in pursuit of personal growth and development. This is something that is important to you, and it is important to me as well. And I would just like, as an added benefit, you have the realtor, thing figured out now, but this only improves your ability to help people, because as you grow as a person, that only gives you more capabilities and skills to helping other people. So as far as the books go, you told me I think you had a top three or a top five that you wanted to share. So I'm going to turn it over to you, and feel free to start wherever you feel
Yeah, well,
comfortable.
thanks for that. I don't know who said it, and I'm not sure that they can attribute it to one person, but you know the saying, if you're not growing, you're dying.
Yeah.
That is, I mean, that rings so true to me because I just feel like no matter what I'm doing, and I think it's super comical to me that you said you've got this realtor thing figured out because I certainly don't feel like it, and I don't think most business owners feel like they have it all figured out, no matter what
Mm.
industry they're in. I feel like it's um, you know, you learn as you go and you grow as you learn. So, I mean, we make a lot of mistakes in life, and we learn from those mistakes. And so I think that's so important. But I do love a good book. And have they come up with another term for self-help now? Or are we still calling it like self-help books?
So this is my own interpretation of this, but I call it personal growth more than self-help, because I think self-help is maybe a little misleading. But um, the way I would sell it to someone is, do you have ambition to provide yourself skills that can provide a better life for you? And from there, I would hope they would say yes. But some people are motivated differently, and then that's where you can just get lost in the personal development, personal growth, or self help industry.
Yes, I love that personal development, personal growth section of the bookstore or Audible because I know you know I am an avid Audible listener because there's just something about when I sit down with a book in my hands that I accidentally start to fall asleep. I don't know what it is. It's the paper format. I don't know, it relaxes me maybe. It lulls me right to sleep. So I'm on the go. As you can probably imagine, as an agent, I am on the road between properties, between client meetings and everything, all the networking. I mean, I'm on the go quite a bit. And so it's awesome to just be able to throw in my AirPods and just start listening to something. My goal is always to, you know, figure out a way to grow and improve in some way.
And I think the thing that really kind of calls to us is this general idea that we just like the progress that one can make in their life, or the concept of and making advancements into a better quality of life. So I know you had some books prepared for me today, and I'm super excited to have you be able to talk on this a little bit. But just kind of going off the top here, what is your first book that you've either read or listen to that you find either fascinating or has made improvements in your life?
Yeah, I'm excited about this. Um, so the first book I that came to mind for me was The Big Leap. Have you heard of this?
I have not. This is going to be interesting.
Okay. So The Big Leap, it's by Gay Hendricks, and it's all about breaking through what he calls your upper limit problem,
Ooh, okay.
which it sounds really interesting, but it's kind of this invisible ceiling that we all have. It's like the point where things are going too well. And so we subconsciously kind of sabotage ourselves because I don't know, for some people, it's like we feel deep down that we don't deserve that much stress or sorry, that much stress. We probably think that we deserve that much stress. No, we feel like we don't deserve that much like success or love or happiness. And so the main concept of the book or the core idea is really that you have these four different zones that you operate within as a person. And so, yeah,
Ooh, okay. This is cool.
I was like, four zones, what does that mean? So the zone of incompetence, which cracks me up, is obviously the things that you're not good at. And then the zone of competence is things that you can do, but others can do them just as well as you. And then the zone of excellence is like things that you're really good at and often, even rewarded for, but maybe they don't really light you up, if that makes sense.
That's a beautiful explanation. Yeah, there's a couple things for me that come to mind as far as liking and performing well at something, but also like it's just not the thing that gets you motivated, you know?
Yeah. So then, like the zone of genius, which I love the way that that's
Ooh.
phrased. So, the zone of genius is that place where your natural talents and passion and purpose are aligned. So, it's like where you
Mhm.
feel joyful and, creative and fulfilled. And so, the whole concept of the book is really that like people get stuck, they kind of max out at that zone of excellence where they're like successful, but they're not like truly thriving. And so the big leap, the title of the book is, that transition or moving into your zone of genius. But to get there, you have to push through like, guilt and even sometimes criticism from people, and just those different challenges that you have to kind of push through. Sometimes it he states it like sometimes we will, self-sabotage, almost like even sometimes getting sick.
Mm.
Like I don't know, it's just it's very interesting, but I think the main takeaways for me was that awareness is super important. Just to like notice when you're maybe self-sabotaging, or maybe when you like your upper limits being tested, and you're starting to hear yourself, like those voices, or you're really hitting some obstacles. And then you just have to kind of be aware of that and open up your, I don't know how to say this, like expanding your capacity for success and happiness, like
Yeah.
allowing yourself to let things go well, and affirm that, it's safe for you to feel good. So, but I mean, a lot of it too is like exploring what is that zone of genius, like what do you love to do, what activities, what produces like the most joy for you.
And what came to mind for me when you had said that is like it will feel very comfortable, I'm sure, to be in excellence because like you already have evidence that this said thing is getting you enough. But if we are to go from good to great or good to, or excellent to genius, the leap is running away from all the comfort that you have for the actual like diamond and the elite level of success. So that's what comes to my mind when I think of those two things together.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, it was a real eye-opening book for me, and I can't remember like where I first heard of it, but it was like I just started asking myself those questions and was like, what is my zone of genius? And for me, it's truly, I think it's educating people and serving, and it was
Mm.
like, okay, what is serving my community and educating, like how can I make that into like how is that my zone of genius, But it's like it does make a lot of sense. And so it has helped me in my own business when I'm just like, what doesn't bring me a lot of joy is social media. Like trying to do that side of my business. It's like, yeah, I'm okay at it. I'm pretty good at it. I can get a lot of likes. I can get down with a little bit of Canva here and there. But is that my zone of genius? It's not. So like having people help with that
Mm.
and being okay with that, yeah, that's
That's the secret bullet.
that is it.
Yeah, there's another thing I'll throw out here, and then we can get to book number two. This comment by Naval. I always get his last name screwed up, but he's written some very, very reputable books. And he says the ultimate competitive advantage is authenticity because there will be certain things you do that feel like play to you, but will be work for other people. And the reason you can always outlast them, or in this case, in your genius zone, is because it is so much work for others to compete versus for you, you're not nearly expending any of that energy because it's literally effortless and it's fun for you.
Right.
And ever since I've heard that definition, I've just personally, as well as yourself, Brie, have found or wanted to find that said thing to spend some time to make impact and to make a lot of money as well too, the
Yeah.
good old American way.
I love that. No, that's a great quote actually. And that, I mean, yeah, that's the truth of it, right? I love it.
Yes, we are certainly seeking that, and that's just one layer or one book, if you will, on this podcast that we wanted to talk about. So, if you wouldn't mind, what would be book number two?
The second one is Go Givers Sell More.
Mm,
Um, I mean, if you've have you read, I mean, if anyone has read Go Givers, that's sort of that's the prequel or that's the original book, where it talks about, this Joe, I think is his name, who's like really ambitious business person, and it kind of walks through this whole scenario. And so when you look at Go Givers Sell More, it sort of just expands beyond that and talks about, you know, that success in sales really comes from, you know, providing value, developing, relationships, and always putting other people's needs first.
yeah.
Um, I don't know if you've heard about like the divine law of compensation.
Oh
Uh,
my, no, I have not.
Yeah, I mean, that's another book, by the way. That's super interesting. But outside of that book itself, it's just a general principle, uh, that has been written about by a lot of people. So you should definitely Google that, the divine law of compensation. But I mean, the ultimate point of it is that if you're giving good in the world, good will come back to you,
Mm,
if that makes sense.
100%.
Um, And so, I mean, it just talks about being generous with your time and your energy. And it talks about, being authentically you and who you are. And uh, yeah, I mean, I think that's the main point of it. And that's really what resonated with me because, I mean, I want to work with the people who allow me to be authentically myself and who I am.
Yeah.
And then if I really am caring about my clients and the people that I'm serving, even in the community, even as challenging sometimes as, let's say, the PTA can be, right? And I think probably a lot of people can resonate with that. It still is just, if I can go into it and be authentically myself and I can be generous with my time and my energy, then I feel that it gets returned to me in a way that just fills my bucket and fuels me to keep going.
And I think we've talked about this just in time, when we've hung out before, is like, if there is a universal kind of, I don't know if frequency is the right word to use. I don't want to get too like scientific on this, but being able to, if you're consistently putting inputs in that are good good nuggets and good, fields of energy, then that is an attraction, like that is a magnet to people that are eventually wanting to return that favor, whether it comes in a month or comes in 2 years. Um, Good intentions always seem to be matched with good intentions. So yeah, both of those are great books. And you had actually mentioned The Go Giver to me, and I like how it is written in a fictional setting, because some are again a little bit hardcore reads where it's like a field manual, but that's a very very lovely book.
It's also
Um,
a short one.
Now I'm
Yeah,
yeah,
The
yeah, you could read
Go-Giver.
that in a
Yeah,
weekend.
so quick read, really good. Highly recommend. That one's red, I think. Go-Givers Sell More
Yes.
is green. Um, both so good. Highly recommend.
Yeah, no doubt, no doubt. And then now I'm just very curious on your third because we had two selling books, and now do we stay in the business selling lane or do we just jump to another completely
So
different?
we,
What if it was like 50 Shades of
uh,
Grey?
we, you, no, you know oh, although I will say, Mary Janice Davidson has this fantastic series about gosh, what is it called? It's called the Undead series. This isn't one of my top three, but
Fascinating.
look up
Yeah, yeah,
the
yeah.
Undead series by Mary Janice Davidson. It's kind of like it's smut books about a vampire queen, I think it is. Um,
I like it.
and
There
like a
we
whole,
go.
there's like a whole saga afterlife situation. I don't know. Maybe one of the most bizarre things that I ever got into. But they're quick reads and there's a bunch of them. And before Audible, because I'm old, I guess this dates me, but before Audible, you had to read a book, and so I had like the whole row of paperbacks on my bookshelf. So I
Mm,
mean, I can
that's
get
too
down
funny.
with some really interesting things as well. But for the purposes of education, I think I kind of stuck in the business lane,
Sure,
because
sure.
I would say, but this isn't, I mean, this is really great for a business owner, but I think that this pertains to sort of anybody who's goal driven in life, no matter what types of goals you have, is the 12-week year. And I think you and
I've never heard of this. This is
I
great.
feel like, I,
I should preface, we have chatted about it, but I have not gone to the extent of either buying it or researching it.
yeah, the 12-week year is, I mean, it has been one of the most impactful books that I've read, because I don't know if it's having ADHD, if that is a component to it, or if it is just naturally how we are in our human state, is that we like to set goals. And then as we go, our motivation wanes and we
Mm,
just don't quite get it done in most instances. And so, like, you think about setting your New Year's resolutions at the beginning of every year, and then, how long does it take for those to die out? And
right.
the 12-week year is a book that talks about like it's a goal setting system that talks about the cycle of setting a goal and how, especially, I mean, anyone can think about that New Year's resolution. By the time you get to February, you're thinking like you still have a long time until the end of the year. You have a lot of time to achieve those goals. So naturally in the cycle of, goal setting or working towards them, you're going to see this like peak at the beginning, this spike of interest and motivation. And then as the year goes, you're just going to see that generally trickle down at, to where at some point, some people just completely give up. So in this book, it
Mm.
talks about that part of the goal cycle as being the valley of despair,
Ah,
because
so
you like
true.
hit a point in your goal cycle where you're just like, my hand, wave the white flag, my hands are up, like I just don't think I'm gonna get it done. You've just completely lost your motivation. Um, and then if you stick with it, you will trend back up. And when you see that second spike is right as you're nearing the end, because
Right.
all of a sudden you're up against that time that you set for yourself. And so you're like, you get that last burst of motivation.
And you want to there's such satisfaction in the home stretch, like when you can see or feel that you're within the reach of that. Yeah, it's like this, like you said, a second wind or a blast of motivation where it's like, well, hell, I've already come this far, why would I not
Yeah.
finish?
And something they talk about is like in the business industry, how often your fourth quarter sales are like through the roof. Like you wonder why people's Decembers are like their best months ever in sales. Or sometimes if it's like, even if it's a quarterly goal, it's like the last couple of weeks or just that last month of the quarter, all of a sudden you see a sales spike or you see, a spike in productivity, whatever that looks like, whatever your metric is. And so the
Hmm.
12-week year is a system that condenses that annual planning into 12 weeks. So you you can have these goals for your whole year. So like let's say, this year you know, I want to lose 50 pounds, whatever that looks like. Whatever that goal is for you. I want to read 50 books. And that's maybe your long-term, like annual goal. But then let's look at that, like, what do we want to accomplish in the next 12 weeks?
Yeah, that's great.
And it really just creates a sense of urgency and like a sharper focus. And there's a lot more to it. Like they have you set, you have to have like clear goals. You know about SMART goals.
Hmm.
I don't know what SMART stands for. Specific,
Specific. Yeah.
measurable. We could anyway. Um, and so you have to set those really clear intentional goals, and then the weekly actions that you're going to use to get to those goals, you set those too. And then you have to track your progress. So
Hmm.
you're not only tracking how far you are along in that 12-week goal, but you're tracking those things that you said you were going to do each week that were going to help you get to that.
Yeah.
And then it also talks about having a weekly accountability meeting with someone.
Mm.
And since I read that book, I have another agent friend of mine, Katie, that has willingly yet possibly begrudgingly had to be my accountability buddy every Monday morning since I read that book. But it really helps because I know I'm going to have to share with her what my percentage was for tracking for the week
Right.
and how things are going. And because I know that that's coming up, it really does hold me accountable.
And accountability is a major thing. And I know that accountability might hit heavy, but you can also think of accountability in a good way too. Like you can give yourself the reward and the satisfaction of having a great week. That's what makes it fun. Is that when you're doing well, you deserve reward. When you're not, then you can be a little harder on yourself, saying, "Why didn't I hit this goal?" But I think having the ability to focus, because yeah, oftentimes when you're talking about a big goal, I want to climb the mountain. You look up at the top of the mountain and you're just like, gosh, that's just so far away. And then this book, it sounds like, well, hey, just get to the first checkpoint. Let's just get to the first checkpoint. Then we're at the first checkpoint. Let's review, and then let's get to the second checkpoint. So, do you know the author of this book, The 12-Week Year?
Author is Brian P. Morgan and Michael Lennington. I had to read that. I couldn't
Hmm.
I couldn't spout that off to you.
That's okay. But going back to your point on ADHD, I think that people that have that know that they have it, this is an advantage because of the shiny object syndrome. So it's like, yeah, I can get hyper focused for 12 weeks. And then by the time that's done, I'm ready to have this part of my wiring saying, all right, I want to shake this off and have something new. And so if you could share anything on that, I think that would be another angle to add on to this.
Yeah. I think um, something that really helped me was when I used this 12-week year and I set a business goal and I set a personal goal. And
Mm,
it's really hard, at least in my industry, because I'm doing the same thing. It's just every day is totally different. Deals are totally different, which is awesome for me. But in general, I mean, I'm still trying to hit a certain volume, and I'm still trying to help people at my core. And so it's hard to sort of set goals around that are different. But I think the side that's been exciting for me is like setting those goals on a personal level that have been a little bit different. I know you and I have talked about in the past, like wishing we were a little bit more organized.
yeah.
And something for me is like a physical clutter really affects like how I operate. And it makes it so much more challenging when there's physical clutter. And because I'm not necessarily the most naturally organized person, it feels like bit of physical clutter. And I have two children, let's face it. Physical clutter sort of seems to just like appear, follow me around. And so one of the things that I did for myself was in one of those goals was like, let's reduce some physical clutter or let's
Yeah.
increase some organization in your life. And then each week I had to set those things and they were different things. So it was like, you need to organize your file drawers because it's become a pile. And I know they need to go in there, but it just is, yeah, it's really challenging. So I think that was something that really helped me because it's like I know what I need to do, but breaking it up into smaller, more digestible increments is really helpful, and especially allowing those to be different things.
Yeah, that's beautiful. For anyone that is curious, like I would highly encourage you. I don't know when the last time you read a book or did an audible. This could be something that might spark, some interest for you, or just give you something fun to maybe focus on. Before we get rounded out here on the podcast, Bria, is there any other books or any other thoughts that you have? And then I'll ask our final question, and we can get this wrapped up.
I mean, I could talk endlessly about books. I have like 20. Now, I'm already second guessing the three that I chose. I mean, they're all so great, but I'm like, are they the best ones that I could have talked about? So no, I mean, I think I'll put a pin in it there, but like, even if there's anyone listening that just wants to talk more about personal growth, books that I've read, I mean, maybe we should start a book club.
Honestly, I've thought about it, just because it's a good way to get people talking about meaningful things. So if you're listening to this, don't be surprised if you see us on social media in the next year or something. Create a book club here locally in Cedar Rapids for people, like-minded people, to connect on that. Um, okay, so we are basically rounded out here, Bree. I'm very appreciative for your time on the Life with Nick podcast and just sharing the value of your perspective of your industry. And just on a personal note, I think it's always fun to talk about successful things. My final question, and this can be taken in any context that you would like, but I'm always curious how people are wired or what motivates them. So go ahead and, if you want to just, maybe it's as simple as, hey, I want to live a successful life, or I want to be a good mom, or what have you. What do you think motivates you on the 21st of September in 2025?
I love that. I think I have always been super motivated by love. I
Mm,
know that sounds a little bit cheesy, that it feels even a little bit awkward to say that, but I think, I mean, the things that motivate me the most are just caring for people and just putting love out into the world. And what it feels like, the more that I do that, the more that I receive love back. Um, and so I think that motivates me. I mean, everything that follows along with that. I want to help my clients. Of course, I want to support my family, and just doing anything I can for my family and my friends. It just brings such joy to my life. So doing that, I am also so driven for some reason. I think part of it is like watching my mom, my whole life has been an entrepreneur.
mm,
From as young as I can remember, she was an Avon lady. I don't know if
yeah,
you
I
are
don't know.
familiar with
So that's
Avon.
different from I'm trying to think what was the one back in the day that my mom did, maybe not Mary Kay.
That was a big one. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
There was one more anyway,
Yeah.
but
Anyway, just like watching her, I mean, she was the Avon lady. She worked for an insurance company, and then she realized that she could provide a better service on her own. And so she decided to start up her own insurance agency. This was back in, let's say back in the 90s when, tanning and tanning beds was all the rage. I grew up in a small community. We didn't have, tanning beds. You had to drive to the nearest town like 20 miles away. So my mom was like, let's start up a tanning salon. And also, we're lacking a video store. So let's just combine those two ideas. So we had a tanning salon and video store growing up. And my mom was an active member of our Chamber of Commerce in our small community. And yeah, she just hustled, and she just did things her own way.
yeah.
And I just think I admired that. And so I've always sort of been driven in that way, that it's like, if you see a need, you know, find a solution and let's figure out if we can fill that need. And if you want something, just go for it, because there's nothing that you can't do. And I know that I'm a huge
Go for
growth
it.
mindset, positive mindset person. Nothing pains me more as a person to hear someone who's stuck in a fixed mindset, and I just want to help people out of that. So, I don't know, that sounded like a Brie-esque version of a response to that question that probably should have been really straightforward.
No, I love it. That's why I wanted to have you on the podcast because I think again everyone's perspective is very valuable, and I think your answer was is more unique than what it sounded maybe because obviously having your mom uh, accomplish those things, that's quite rare, right? Because by default most people are employees and their parents were employees because that's just the nature of you need a lot of employees versus owners, but also to just to have that love intention. I think that that's great as well too because like we had talked about a little bit ago on those books, there really is a true universal effect when you have good inputs into the universe. You generally get good inputs back. So um, I'm not taken back by your answer. In fact, I felt like that was how you deliver it. But thank you so much for opening up a little bit, just so the folks can kind of hear how you're wired, and hopefully they can maybe implement some of that stuff in their own life. So, just out of curiosity, Bree, what is next for you?
Yeah, I think I would say what's next for me is I have started a commercial certification class. And I have taken a CCIM 101, which is commercial real estate. So I'm kind of delving into that world, which is really unique and interesting, and it's so different from the residential side, um, that I would say that is going to be a huge learning curve for me. And so it'll be fun to chat again sometime about what that looks like and how that's going and what I've learned between the two things. Because, that's what I'm about, is just trying to figure out how I'm going to grow in that and what I'm going to learn and take away, and then what I can share with the world about that.
Yeah, that's a beautiful next step. And I think that that's just a very clear indication of how your mind works is, we take one step at a time. We need to be intentional about those things and how we show up in work and in life. But also, that's just how you continue to ratchet up. You don't just jump right to commercial licensing in your world and then just get after it. Maybe you do, I don't know. But I'm assuming that there is a process that they have where they want you to get comfortable first and encourage you to continue to better your skills and your knowledge, which is a beautiful sentiment. So final and parting thoughts on the Life with Nick podcast with Miss Bree here. Do you have anything, or have you feel like you emptied the cup on your industry and yourself?
No, I think we're good. I think this was a great conversation, and thank you so much for inviting me to come and chat with you. And I'm so proud of you.
Thank
Keep
you,
it up.
Bree. Thank you so much. Yeah. Well, I know it could be potentially in the back of your mind as to, why I would want to have you on the show. But one of my core things is like giving voice to everyday people because I think everyday people are very fascinating. But also, you would be the first individual that would be a realtor that would come on the show. And lastly, I have appreciated our conversations in the past about personal growth, personal development, and I just think you would have been a good spark of inspiration for people that are both curious about those two topics of being a realtor and also personal growth and development.
Cool. Love it.
Awesome. Well, you heard it here, folks. We appreciate you tuning in to the show, and until next time.